All right, so let's talk about the process just a little bit of the i6estalt creative thinking strategy. By the way, it's i6estalt. Some of the AI videos where I'm just reading to you from the book um, has a different way of pronouncing it, so just ignore that. I apologize. We'll clean that up later. Moving at 100 miles an hour right now. Again, we're in my spice shop, Chef Heart, where we take this concept of i6estalt creative thinking strategy and we leverage it as the substrate of PersonaWare, and then from there we utilize PersonaWare to digitize human personas and others in order to create spice blends that mirror the and actually capture the essence of a persona. And so, to talk about the process of i6estalt, this may be a little bit repetitive of what we talked about in the principles because we went through all the steps, but I'm just going to kind of free range here for a moment. And when I'm done, charge you twice as much. No, that's chicken. Um, the i6estalt creative thinking strategy is nothing more than a reverse engineered awareness of how creativity works. And in essence, and in a nutshell, creativity is the process of being aware and recognizing when you have opened up pathways into the sixth sense and connected with an address. So we're told through Solomon's records, the Bible, a variety of other ancient texts, that there is hidden wisdom in this world. And we know that because we utilize it all the time. Things like forgiveness, things like thankfulness, and we see the result of exercising these type of elements, right? There's also hidden power in just understanding metaphysics and how the world is put together outside of our visual realm and that which we can experience with our five senses. I think it was Faraday who discovered magnetism, and he kind of leaned on his faith to believe that there were unseen forces in the world acting upon his everyday life. And from that, it caused him to start to do some scientific studying, and he recognized and discovered magnetism, and then, of course, mathematically proved it and wrote laws to allow us to utilize it. And now, when you take something like a transformer in electrical components, and anytime you plug in a block for your iPhone, there's a transformer in there, and essentially it's a coil to a wire and another coil connected to a wire, and juice comes up, not orange juice but electrical juice comes up through that wire, and it goes through all the coils, and it creates an electromagnetic field around it. That electromagnetic field, when these two coils are situated and built around a very specific, I'm trying to see where my hands, I can just lower them, around a specific wire size, and a certain voltage goes through there, that field gets a predicted size. Well, what happens is the field saturates this coil, which has no electricity on it, and but maybe these wires are smaller. And so what happens is this coil builds up, creates an electromagnetic field, and it transfers, that's why it's called a transformer, from here to here magnetically without ever touching, and then that current flows through the other electrical wire. And the rest is dissipated as heat. And often these little plugs get very hot. Why? Well, because they are transforming 120 volts out of your wall socket into a much smaller voltage. And then, of course, they typically go through a DC circuit, which causes them to be smooth and conditioned and ready for your iPhone, which requires very, very low voltage. So that step down from 120 to like 3 volts is, or 9 volts or 12, whatever it's running on, is significant. Therefore, it dissipates all that as heat. And you can think of this process of the creative thinking strategy in a very similar way, in that we are reaching into the ether and we are transforming those ideas into our conscious mind. We do this, like I said before, without really controlling it and being aware of it when we have a good idea. Things like taking a shower, going for a long walk, or something like that's mundane. those kind of instances where suddenly you just have this brainstorm, they come about because you have been building rods of knowledge in your mind. Of course, this is just a metaphoric framework. It's not you're not really putting cones in your head like there's cones in your eyes for the colors. It's not the same. It's just a framework. This is just a model. But you're building rods of knowledge, and as you do, they are growing up thinner and thinner, and eventually they spark and they connect and they come together. And when they do that, they address an element in the sixth sense, in that ethereal realm, and literally they complete the connection, the cycle, the circuit, and they pull down that data. That, or better explain, you become part of the circuit of what data is residing in that very specific place. And then as you investigate it, because you're aware of the idea, you tend to spread out and find all the data that's associated with that gestalt, with that idea. And what you should do is, it comes into your conscious mind, is grab a tape recorder and speak it, get on video, or pull out a pen and paper, which is usually the quickest, and start documenting. By doing that, you're taking that idea from the ether and you're putting it into physical reality. You're also getting your whole mechanism here involved, and that helps retain the idea, and it also gives it structure, because you start to consciously build walls around that idea until you contained it. And once you contained it, you built a model. Models are going to be the product of Web 4. The product of the future will be models, thought models, that work inside of a Web 4 ecosystem in order to bring about a desired conclusion, and that desired conclusion will be the result of these gestalts. And this process is what will take place. And by taking PersonaWare and implementing it the way we have, and manifesting spice blends, what we have done is we've taken a snapshot of this same concept, but instead of reaching into the ether to get a fresh idea, we reached into another person. We found their persona, and we digitized it, and then we mapped it back to a spice blend. Same pathway, same ethereal processes. We just changed the focus from the ether to an actual person. And you say, well, isn't there some similarities there in the way we process light? Yes, we are connected to that ether. That's kind of another subject that I don't want to take us into right here. But that is the very reason the idea of Web 4 has value, because we are able to, with this process, connect to one another through the ether using the blueprint of our personas. We just have to be able to capture it, and then of course facilitate it back to a very applicable application. But that's what all of this is about. That's why we're setting it up this way. So one of the aspects of having an i-gestalt, or having a gestalt, having a moment of clarity and connection, has a lot to do with your alignment. And we'll get more into this in the 7 arenas of human experience. But in order for these rods of knowledge, or rocks as I call them, ROKs, to truly flourish and to connect into the ether, and to have their greatest impact and their most flexibility, and to be as profound as they can possibly be, they need to exist in a very pure environment. They need to exist in a space in your unconscious mind that's free of clutter. This is why prayer and meditation tend to lead to good ideas. This is why keeping your body clean, your temple clean, tends to lead to bigger and better ideas, because the clarity by which these rocks live in, they require that clarity in order to arc. Think of a light bulb. Edison, by the way, I couldn't remember his name, and then I went home last night. I was like, I gotta figure this out. I can't believe I forgot Edison's name. Anyhow, don't tell him. Edison, he encapsulated his filament in a tube that had an inert gas in it. He vacuumed the tube, with his house vacuum, with a pump or whatever, vacuumed out all the air, and then he filled it with an uninert, I-N-E-R-T, gas, which kept the environment clean. Because what would happen is, if air, which naturally has particles in it, were to touch the tungsten filament as electricity surged through it, it would create resistance beyond the resistance that was calibrated, that it was calibrated for, and then that would ultimately burn it out. And so this is kind of what happens in a light bulb over time anyhow. As the filament breaks down, it creates its own levels of resistance that eventually burns out the light bulb. But air inside a light bulb would make it happen so much faster. And so we've got to have this clarity that needs to come both consciously, and as we talk about the 7 arenas of human experience, you'll discover that light tends to reflect and refract inside of this paradigm, this model inside of us, and it affects how we act and react and respond, and how we filter and all of these things, and it reacts from arena to arena. But now we just concentrate on this rod of knowledge. If it has impurities in there, it's going to inhibit it from making a clean connection. And so you may have what has been termed in computer language as fuzzy logic, and you don't have specifics, and before you know it, you've got an idea, but you can't get to the root of it. You can't really piece it together. I always tell people, once you get a hold of an idea, you need to work it. I don't care if it's in a dream. Get into an active mode of embracing that idea and directing it and getting control of it, which is what Einstein did with his coffee mug. He would wait until he was able to find that gestalt. Of course, he himself was so full of raw knowledge that he was able to build rocks on the fly, if you will, because he was able to just simply arrange knowledge that was already embedded in his profile and arrange it in such a way that he could then direct those rods of knowledge into the area of the ether that was applicable to the problem he was trying to solve. But as soon as he started getting a glimpse and capturing a moment of clarity with that idea, then he was able to consciously seek out the rest of the parameters of that idea. And this is why you want to write it down. This is why you want to speak it, because as you do, you get a feedback loop going that runs through the physical arena, the senses, the emotions, the conscious, the subconscious, all of the 7 arenas of human experience you'll learn in the next module. And it starts to feed on itself. Before you know it, you're building an aura about you. You're literally allowing your mind and your body to become, if you will, its own talisman into that arena, or that 6th arena, that acacia records, that world of wisdom. You, for a moment, are setting your fundamental frequency to exactly that idea. And if you do that and you remain in that moment and you're disciplined enough to channel it and to document it, well, now you become a creative thinker that has value, because you can apply that value at a moment's notice. When the boss says we need a solution, when all of a sudden the entrepreneur finds himself against the wall, he says, I know how to accomplish this. And if it's in an area that he's not familiar with or has not had experience or success in, he knows that he can go back to the saturation method and use all of his tools of saturation to bring about those rods of knowledge and get them to spark. And as soon as he gets that gestalt, he knows how to frame it. And then before you know it, you're aligned. And because your fundamental frequency is now aligned with that fundamental frequency, you will innately connect and start to manifest, as they say, and I put that in air quotes, the results of what you're after. And of course, you've read The Secret, you've heard all the, Think and Grow Rich and all these books. They tell you from the outside in how to arrange your life to perform this manifestation. But I'm telling you, there's an internal means by which to align yourself. And that is simply by building rods of knowledge and being aware and trusting that they will find the secret, the answer for you. This is just a matter of flipping it on its head, but it's absolutely necessary as a substrate to Web 4 to understand that this is how the process works. We've seen it very much. It's interesting because this process bears out in all of life. It's really kind of the concept of serving. It's the concept of giving of yourself and then having it returned unto you. It's the idea through meditation and prayer of lying substrate before the one to whom you pray, and anticipating that power flow coming through you. We see it over and over and over, even in marketing these days. The whole idea is to serve people and to contribute to their value until they get to a point where they say, hey, I need to hire you to really bring about everything that you can into my business, because I see how you will further my business with your skills. And it's just interesting that that's a cultural appropriation of this ethereal principle, but it allows you to maybe see it more clearly, that it's not just foo-foo, it's not just etherware. It's only etherware because we've gotten away from these principles, because we've gotten away from truth, because we've gotten so inundated with this physical arena and the material world. Not to sound like an 80s pop singer, but you get what I'm saying. We have lost our connection with the things that truly give us a sense of power, individual power and communal power at an ethereal level. And I believe that when we were created this way as a specimen with a frontal lobe that goes through the world, bringing in light energy and transmuting it through the 7 arenas in order to create a result that we were designed for, a result that we were actually programmed with in our DNA to produce in the world. But we let that go by so I would say so arrogantly, because we're more interested in consuming the energy and the light within ourselves rather than allowing it and lending ourselves to it. But by doing this, success is guaranteed. By doing this and the process bearing itself out, answers and ideas and the result of creative thinking, it's guaranteed, because once you make that connection, there's nothing inhibiting it from impacting your life and from coming into your pen and your vocal cords and manifesting into the world. And then anything that you can take that far, you can take to the nth degree simply by applying a different set of laws and a different set of rules. You ever notice an airplane flies because it's doing one thing and one thing only, and that is obeying the laws of aerodynamics. Doesn't matter the shape of the wing, it doesn't matter the positioning of the rotors, as long as at the end of the day it's obeying the laws of aerodynamics, it flies. And guess what happens the moment that it disobeys? It crashes. And so we can see these principles, these unseen principles, playing out in electricity and in flight and in other areas of life. Yet we seem to think that when it comes to applying them to getting ideas and understanding how the world works beyond our viewpoint, that it's some sort of spooky thing. It's not really. It's just more foreign to us than it ever was. If you look back in ancient times in Egypt, in Africa, and there's still places on earth that fully embrace what I'm teaching here. This probably to many is nothing new. If there's any aspect of it that's new, it's the fact that I am working within the confines and within the given technology to bring it about on a commercial level so that it can be made available to everyone. And once everybody has the ability to conceive what they want and bring it into the world, and then of course channel it for good, well, now we've built a very, very large transformer, one that could literally transform the landscape of the world that we live in. So this is why we call it Chef Heart, because this is a spice blend company imploring these principles so that as our company grows, we're able to give back and produce good in the world, which then part of the feedback loop reinforces the mission and the journey that we're on. It reinforces our faith. It reinforces our beliefs. And I believe it nurtures and actually reinforces our health, our minds, our attitudes. And if nothing, makes life absolutely invigorating and exciting and worth looking forward to each and every day. So the i6estalt creative thinking strategy has the potential to completely revolutionize your life or just give you an edge. But if you'll give it a chance and let it at least influence you to take a deep breath and realize that all things work together for good. You just need to be in alignment with that good, and good will come to you. All right, this has been what will serve both as the process and the conclusion of this module. I would encourage you to read through the conclusion, download the i6estalt Creative Thinking Strategy PDF. I wrote it 20 years ago, so there are some out-of-date references in it, but I've already mentioned that time and again. But get a sense of how this process works and apply it. And after you apply it time and again and you start to live it, such as we discussed in the L aspect of i6estalt, it will become second nature. And as it becomes second nature, ask yourself this one question and seek an answer for it. And that question is, what is truth? What is truth? What is truth? What is truth? And if you're doing it correctly, it should change and get more and more narrow and more focused as you get closer and closer to it. It is not for me to tell you what truth is. It is for you to find out. And when you get to a point where you finally go, there is nothing else that can point to truth because I found truth, and your life matures more succinctly in that truth than it does for seeking the truth. Imagine, somebody says, what is the meaning of life? You spend your whole life seeking it, but you're moving towards the truth of the meaning of life. But imagine you find the meaning of life. And as you move beyond that, you cannot change your answer because you found it. Rather, you grow upon that. That is the whole hope here. Once you find your truth, you'll grow upon it. You'll move way past anything you ever thought you could become because you will learn to submit to that truth. This is the i6estalt Creative Thinking Strategy, and this is Chef Art, and I look forward to seeing you. We're going to talk about the 7 arenas of human experience next. We're going to use this substrate to build. We're going to build upon it, and we're going to get a little bit closer to truth because we're going to see how light energy affects us and how it works within us on a daily, moment-by-moment basis. And when you grasp the reality of this and then later see how we apply it to industry, you're going to realize you can paint a lane all of your own in business or in life, and it will be very, very rewarding. Thank you for taking the time, and see you in a bit. No, I won't see you. You'll see me, unless you send me a pic. Okay, go for it. Do it in the comments. All right, later.